Good morning, reflectors.
Good morning.
Welcome and welcome back to today's reflection. It's Friday, April 24th. We're so glad you're here with us to reflect on these different nutriments that we talked about this week. Annette, would you like to start us off?
Sure.
What's on your mind?
I wanted to talk about negative self-talk. I don't know if we covered that as thoroughly as I would have liked yesterday when we're thinking about that fourth nutriment. And I do want to hit on all four during this podcast as we reflect, but I want to make sure we give ourselves some compassion and grace, but also to set some boundaries with ourselves if we find that we are in a habit of negative self-talk. Negative self-talk doesn't serve us, and if we get into the habit of shaming ourselves, cussing ourselves out, telling ourselves how awful we are, or telling ourselves if we would have just been better, this wouldn't have happened. If we get into that habit, and I'm going to keep saying that because it's just a habit and you can break it, what that does is it influences your entire experience of life. When you wake up in the morning and you start shaming yourself, how can you have a good day? When you show up at work and you start working and maybe you make a mistake and you beat yourself up and you beat yourself up and you beat yourself up, and you may think I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. What happens is that then becomes how you do show up. You show up in this world as someone who is making yourself low. You show up in this world as someone that doesn't have as much value as everyone else. And I'm here to tell you, you have just as much value as anyone else, no matter who you are. You can think, well, if she just knew about me, she wouldn't be saying this. No. First of all, I've been a coach since 2013. I've heard a lot. I've also lived 64 years. I've seen a lot. I'm here to tell you there is nothing about you that makes you this person who's the only one or the worst one, or if people just knew. Please know, because once we start feeding into that negative self-talk and then creating an identity for ourselves around that, then we can't break out of it. What we do is then everything we see and every interaction we have is filtered through that negative self-image that we've created. And that's what that fourth nutriment is all about. And we didn't really get into that part yesterday. But if you're creating this influence in your own life of your own negative self-talk, reach out for help. Find a counselor, find a coach, find a therapist who will help you to reframe your experience so that you can see yourself in a different way, from a different light, so that you can start to see all that you have to offer this world. And we all have something to offer this world. You're not different.
Well said. You're so right, though, that this isn't about being phony baloney and talking all positive if things are not going well or if you're stressed out. There's a huge difference between always talking yourself down and then trying to push everything aside and just saying, oh, I'm just going to be positive here. If I'm positive, everything will turn out great.
Because that's not authentic. That's fake.
That's all. Yeah, exactly. We want to have a healthy balance of what's actually going on in life.
Because we all struggle. We all make mistakes. We all completely screw up sometimes.
It happens. Normally when people say they're a realist, they're making an excuse for themselves so they can be negative. Oh, I'm a realist. Okay, I've said this before, so I'm not picking on anybody. I'm picking on myself here. I'm a realist, so I can say how bad things are. I did need to learn that actually being a realist means you have to look at the whole picture. You can't just look at the negative side and say, I'm a realist. Some of life is hard and tough. a lot more, actually. The good outweighs the bad. The realistic perspective is some is good, some is bad. The good outweighs the bad on most days. So the realistic perspective is to find what's great about life or great about the day and hold on to that more so than trying to amplify how bad everything is.
Or how bad you are. That's what I really
Yes.
wanted us to talk about today. You can see it as failure and then talk yourself into this place where you're very, very low and you're insignificant. Or you can see it as a learning experience, or you're going to make some adjustments and do it differently the next time. It's habitual how we look at these things. I want to share about our friend Billy's life. If you've come in for coaching, you've probably heard a little of this. But our friend Billy is someone that I think about when I think about this fourth nutriment. And I want to start out by sharing that Billy was one of the most influential people that I have known in my life. But Billy was born in Wyoming, and she had two brothers. She was the middle one, and she was transgender. She didn't have words for being transgender. She just knew that she was different. And she told her mom, by the time she was 3, she told her mom she's different. Billy passed away from a brain tumor in 2019. And we were there with her, not when she passed away, but we visited her once a month, every month, because she moved from where we lived to Denver, and we couldn't really see her as much. But Billy's life is what we're talking about here with this nutriment. She was told by other people that something was wrong with her or she didn't fit in. And so that she tried whatever she could to be different than she was. She began drinking heavily at age 13 because it was hard for her to accept who she was. And it was hard to hear the collective, the word that you used yesterday, the influence of the collective that was happening against her. And so she joined the Navy and she got married and she did all the things so that she could be different in other people's eyes and she could be acceptable in other people's eyes. But it was not who she was. And she knew it. And we met her when she was about 50, probably 54, 55. And we knew her for over 10 years. But what was interesting about her is that she finally got to this place where she let the habit of this negative self-talk go. And she realized who she was who she was. And she had so much wisdom and so much love and so much care. I look at her as someone who she would say, if she were sitting here right now, that she would say that she just made herself small. She made herself odd. She made herself defective until she reached a point in her life where she knew that wasn't true, where she knew that she was loving, where she knew that she was kind, that she knew that she was who she was meant to be. And we got to know that side of her. And she struggled. She struggled. And she was just kind of coming into her own in her mid-60s, and then she got a brain tumor and she passed away. But she affected my life in such a way because she would be encouraging to people. She would help other people when they were feeling so low and so down because she knew what that felt like, but she also knew that it wasn't true. So when we're thinking about this nutriment, what nourishes us? When we see ourselves as who we truly are, when we recognize the love that we are, when we don't listen to what other people say about us or what other people's opinions are when they're bringing us down, we rise above that and we see what's really true. And what's really true is we all have something to offer this world, no matter who you are, that we all make mistakes and we all struggle. Viktor Frankl in his book says every life has its struggle, and that's true. but we can rise above and we can reach out for help, and then we can help others. That's what life is about, learning to love ourselves so that we can love others.
Let's build off of that for our reflection for today and for this weekend. Going full circle, since you brought up self-talk at the beginning of today's reflection, what is one piece or bit of self-talk that I can change so I can love myself more fully? What is one piece or bit of self-talk that I can change so I can love myself more fully? Thank you so much for joining us today and this week. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you Monday.
See you then.
I'm wanting something more.